Hello and welcome to Math in 5 Minutes-ish with me, Miss Wodzinski, where I break down complicated math topics into simple, easy to understand explanations. Today's topic is an intro to trigonometry. We will talk about the different trig ratios and explain how to find their values and how to label different parts of the triangle. So let's get started. So trigonometry is the study of the relationship between angles and sides in triangles, and most of the time we use trigonometry to set up equations to solve for missing sides or angles in triangles. So we need to go through the different types of trigonometric ratios that there are, how to set them up, and how to know which one to use. So there are 3 trig ratios we're going to focus on in this lesson, and that is sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, each trig ratio is based on an angle of a triangle and the relationship between 2 of the sides of that triangle. So it is important to know what ratio is represented by sine, what ratio is represented by cosine, and what ratio is represented by tangent. So it's important to know that our trig ratios are always associated with an angle of a triangle. So you'll always see sine and then an angle following it, cosine and an angle following it, tangent and then an angle following it. So in this case, I have marked angle A. That's sort of the angle that we're focusing on in this specific triangle, but you of course could use the other angle. You cannot use the 90-degree angle. That's really important. You have to use one of the other 2 acute angles. So sine is the value of the ratio of the opposite side of a triangle. Now the opposite side is always going to be across from the given angle to the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. So it's a fraction, or it could be a decimal, and it represents the relationship or the ratio between the opposite side and the hypotenuse. Cosine is the ratio of the adjacent side to the hypotenuse. Now the adjacent side is the side that is right next to the angle we are focusing on. And again, the hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. Last, tangent is the ratio of the opposite side of the triangle, so across from the angle we're given, to the adjacent side of the triangle, or next to the angle that we are given. So if you're not sure to figure out which one is the opposite side and which one is the adjacent side, I could take an arrow and just draw it straight across from the angle we're given, and that one is the opposite side. The hypotenuse is obviously the one across from the 90-degree angle, and the other one is the adjacent side. I would always suggest labeling your triangle before you start any of this. That will take a lot of the confusion away from finding the values of sine, cosine, and tangent. Now maybe you're thinking, how am I going to remember this? Well, luckily there is a really easy mnemonic device to help you remember sine, cosine, and tangent and the associated ratios, and that is a funny word called SOHCAHTOA. So pronounced SOHCAHTOA. Of course, the S stands for sine, and it's opposite over adjacent. So SOH, so. And then the C is cosine. So it's adjacent over hypotenuse, CAH, CA. And then T is for tangent, and that's opposite over adjacent, which is TOA. So TOA. Okay, let's go through one example here, just finding the values of different trig ratios. So for these first 3 examples right here, I'm asking for sine, cosine, and tangent of 22.6 degrees. So that means this is the angle we are focusing on, which means I would start off very quickly by just going ahead and labeling the sides. So I'm going to put an H for hypotenuse, an O for opposite, and an A for adjacent. So that means sine would be opposite over hypotenuse, which would be 5 over 13. And then cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, would be 12 over 13. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent, so that would be 5 over 12. Then for the other set, we are going to use 67.4 as our angle that we're focusing on, which means we need to relabel the triangle. So now we're going to say we're standing right here, we're focusing on that angle, which means that now 12 is my opposite side and 5 is my adjacent side. So now Sine of 67.4 would be 12 over 13. Cosine of 67.4 would be 5 over 13. And then tangent of 67.4 would be 12 over 5. So you can notice a few patterns here. You can see that the sine of one angle is the same as the cosine of the other angle, and vice versa. And then we can see that the tangent of one angle is the reciprocal of the tangent of the other angle. So this was a really quick explanation of how to find the values of different trig functions, cosine, sine, and tangent. Hopefully this is helpful to you. And as always, happy learning.